Okay, I'm going to start this morning by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung News. Sawadee Kap. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to those of you guys joining us online as well. Today is our group learning program where we study the teachings of the Buddha through this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is a foundational text that we use in order to gradually help students to understand the path to enlightenment. And each Sunday, I do a talk on a particular chapter from that book. I start with meditation, but then I move into a topic from that book. And today we're in chapter 10, which is titled, What is Merit? This is something that you would need to learn in order to make your way to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind has been trained to experience nothing but peace, calmness, serenity, and contentedness with joy. The enlightened mind doesn't experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind. And this is occurring through training of the mind. So one of the things that you do to train your mind to get to enlightenment is you train it through meditation. So that's why we start with each class with meditation. But there's other things that you would need besides meditation in order to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state. So that's why I do talks each week to be able to help students to gradually learn the path to enlightenment. And you can learn here, you can learn online, depending on where you are in the world. We've set up in such a way that whatever lifestyle you have, you can continue to learn and grow and develop on the path. So I'm going to guide you guys in a meditation session to get started. And then afterwards, I'll share this talk on what is merit to help you guys understand this important topic. If you'd like to join along in the meditation, the way that we start is with some chanting to ease into the meditation. These chants are something that you can actually get access to over there on the cabinet. There's laminated sheets, and I see people have passed those out, which was very kind of them. For those of you guys that are online, if you would like to get a laminated sheet or a sheet that has the daily chants, you can go to buddhadailywisdom.com, and from there click on free books, and you can scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see the same sheet that we're using here at the temple. These chants are something that I suspect the Buddha's students created either during his life or after his death, because during the Buddha's life, he used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Everything that he taught was oral, so they needed to chant once every 2 weeks in order to recite the teachings and commit them to memory. There isn't anything mystical or magical with chanting. It's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship, or it's not prayer, anything like that. Chanting came about through just helping the students to be able to remember the teachings, where today we don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings because we have books and audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this that will capture the teachings. So we don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings. I still chant because it helps to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. And you'll find that if you choose to chant along, because you're welcome to chant along as I start the chanting, and it'll help ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself, because it's developing awareness of mind and awareness of breath as you ease into meditation. If you read the English translations of these chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think that the Buddha actually created these chants, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around saying, here, chant these things to me out of respect to me, because this would be ego if somebody did that. And an enlightened being, and surely a Buddha, wouldn't actually have an ego, arrogance, putting themselves above others and looking down on people. So I suspect his students created these either during his life or after his death, because if you learn from a teacher how to move from all that anger and sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to this mental state that is where the mind is peaceful and joyful permanently, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. Because the Buddha didn't want anything from his students. He didn't expect anything from his students. He was just sharing the teachings out of the kindness of his heart to be able to help people experience this mental state that he figured out how to attain. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to do that on the way in. Then there's going to be some guidance that you're going to hear me providing as we're meditating. I'll actually be kind of instructing you in the meditation as we're actually doing it together. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet. We're just all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple, anyone joining us online, will just be meditating at the same time. I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds because you can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. It's not possible for that. So as long as your mind is not craving permanent silence, then you won't be frustrated or annoyed when you hear any kind of sound. But if your mind is craving for permanent silence by living in this impermanent world and you hear a sound, you'll be frustrated or annoyed. But you can eliminate that from the mind by eliminating the longing, yearning, wanting permanent silence, when in reality you can't experience that no matter what environment you're in. After we're meditating together, then after that we're going to come out of it with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class. So it's the same chants that we go into meditation with that we'll come out of meditation with. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught for meditation: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times in your journey to enlightenment, because you're going to need these at different times, because your body can't be in the same position all the time. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position, because this is a common position that people are learning in when they first get started. But understand, what I'm sharing with you is just guidance. You can find whatever position is comfortable for you. There isn't just one fixed position for everybody to sit in. This isn't about everybody doing it exactly the same way. It's about finding what's comfortable for you. So I'll share a bit of guidance that can maybe help you find some more comfort. If you're on the floor, you might be sitting with some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat a bit. And then people usually like to bring their legs together in their cross-leg position, but you like to just do that lightly, because if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. So if you just lightly bring your legs together, this is going to be best. And then oftentimes people even like to put their legs off the mat. This will help get your hips up in the air, lessening the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and allow the circulation to flow. So you might consider that as an option. In terms of your hands and arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way, because this isn't actually possible. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can find whatever's comfortable for you. And for those of you guys that are in chairs, or maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair or something like this, it's the same thing. You can find whatever's comfortable for you. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed. So there's many different options here as well. And then in terms of your upper body, you would like this to be erect with your sternum up and your shoulders back. This is going to help your mind stay attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. And you need the mind to be attentive and alert during this meditation, because if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid with the upper body, your mind can be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with your sternum up and the shoulders back to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. It also helps you to breathe easily in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join along, and then I'm going to come back in with the guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato สัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวาปานุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, Whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโพตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us as well. Nice to see everyone this morning. Welcome to Wat Tung. For those of you guys that are maybe here for the first time, I'll share a couple of things to help you feel even more comfortable here. That in the back of the room, the last two doors, there's bathrooms there. You're welcome to get up and use the restrooms at any time. There's even bathrooms outside the classroom. If you go out to the parking lot, there's signs that'll take you around to the main temple bathroom. You're welcome to use those as well. We have snacks and refreshments and things like that provided by our students over here that you're welcome to help yourself to as well. At any point, just feel free to make your way over to there to help yourself to those things. So as I mentioned, today's topic is what is merit. This is an important topic to understand in terms of your journey to enlightenment. In order to understand this topic, there's some other teachings that you would need to first understand. So I'm going to introduce you to those first so that you can understand those. Prior to this particular topic, in this program and in other courses and retreats that I teach these other teachings that I'm going to now introduce you to in a more thorough way to make sure students understand them before I teach what is merit. But for those of you guys that haven't studied those before, this will be an opportunity for you to get introduced to these other teachings that you need in order to understand this topic of what is merit. And for those of you guys that already understand the teachings, I will be able to help you kind of get a refreshment of those teachings to kind of refresh your mind. So as I go in today's talk, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions that you like, whether you're here at the temple or you're online. You can ask questions here at the temple by using the microphones here in the white bowl. All you need to do is get a microphone, press the gray button. You're going to see lights come on, and you can hold that up to your chin, and then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then when you're done, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get any feedback from the microphones, that would be great. You can even keep the microphones with you because you might have more than one question, or the people around you might have a question, and you can share the microphone around with the people around you. And then for those of you guys that are online, if you'd like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So as I mentioned, this topic of what is merit is something that is important to understand in your journey to enlightenment. But let's just talk a little bit about some of the preliminary teachings that someone would need to understand in order to be able to understand this topic. The teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. Sometimes what people are taught is to believe a bunch of things and then hope something good happens when you die. This isn't the way the teachings of the Buddha are taught, and that's not what the Buddha actually taught. He taught you how to train your mind to get to peace and joy now in this life. It's not about an afterlife. It's about learning and growing and developing, becoming a better and better human being, training your mind to eliminate certain pollutions that are in the mind, getting to the point where your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the enlightened mind. The mind will be performing optimally. You'll notice that there's focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Your personal professional relationships will be really blossoming because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships any longer. So you're going to notice that you have a drastic improvement to having more and more harmonious relationships in your day-to-day life. Oftentimes people think that what's causing the difficulties and struggles in their life is the outside world. They might think it's other people that's causing the difficulties and struggles in their life, but it's actually coming from within your own mind. And this is why you can get to peace and joy, because it's a matter of training your mind, understanding the wisdom of how to do that. You get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood anymore because the causes and conditions that are producing the bad mood have been uprooted from the mind. So an enlightened mind is a permanent mental state that you're experiencing in this life. And this is accomplished through learning, examining, and investigating the teachings of the Buddha so that you can intellectually understand them. Then you start reflecting on the teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life so you can train your mind. As I mentioned, there's nothing about the teachings that is based in belief. So as you're gradually training your mind, eradicating more and more of this pollution of the mind, you'll see more peace and more joy coming into the mind. Certain situations where you were once angry or frustrated or agitated, you're going to notice that that slowly and gradually is eliminated, that you'll be in those same exact situations and the mind will be completely peaceful and completely joyful in those situations. And you'll know it's these teachings and this training that's helped you to be able to do that. The very beginning teaching of the Buddha is called the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is a teaching that in four simple statements, you can understand the problem in your mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And now you can have this real breakthrough to understanding what's causing your discontent feelings. If you don't understand what's causing the anger and the frustration and all these other discontent feelings like stress and anxiety and guilt and shame and fear, you would never be able to eliminate it. So in the first noble truth, the Buddha explains that the problem that an individual is experiencing is the discontent feelings, where the mind is forming its inner feelings based on some condition. And these discontent feelings essentially shake up the mind, whether they're pleasant feelings or painful feelings or neither painful nor pleasant. The mind is shaken up by these, and it's uncalm, it's unsteady, it's unstable. Then the cause of this problem is something called craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, the mind chasing after the objects of its affection. It's almost like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it, and it forms its inner feelings on whether it gets this thing or not. The mind is craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent in the world, but in reality you live in an impermanent world. So if you get so happy and excited because it's sunny outside, that means when it's raining or some other weather event, you'll be frustrated or sad or annoyed. Or if you get so happy because your bank account balance is up here, then when your bank account balance goes here, you'll be sad or frustrated or agitated. And this is because the mind is forming its inner feelings based on some condition, that if the bank account balance is here, the mind is happy. But now, because that is not permanent, your happiness is not permanent either, because you formed your feeling based on this thing, the craving, the longing, the yearning, the wanting this thing to be permanent. And then when the bank account balance goes here, all that's happened is you experience some impermanence, change, and everything around the world is constantly changing. But when your mind is craving for things to be permanent, when you experience that change, the mind doesn't like it, and it starts to experience the frustration or annoyment or some other discontent feeling like stress or anxiety or something like this. You can think about a time when you've been with a boyfriend or girlfriend, perhaps. When you guys first got together, you might have got so happy or excited with this new person in your life, showing you affection and going out to the movies and going to dinner. Maybe you guys were having great conversations, going to the park. Maybe you're having intimate contact with each other and you got all these pleasant feelings as a result. But then when you guys broke up, you were sad or frustrated or angry, or you felt lonely or bored during that time. This is because the mind was holding on, wanting this person to be permanent in your life. It's not because of the love. Love doesn't cause an individual to experience anger and sad and frustration. It's not from the care. What it is the mind's longing, yearning, and wanting this relationship to be permanent. But yet this relationship was always impermanent, even from the very beginning. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first. So when you're with this person, maybe you feel happy, and now when you're away from this person, you feel sad or miserable or sorrowful. That's because their feelings are attached to this person, wanting this person to be permanent in your life. You can see this in other situations too. Maybe if you had a brand new car or something like this, and you got so excited with this brand new car, but when you park it at a store and you go inside, and then you come outside and you see a scratch on your car, you might get angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. They're not the ones who's causing you to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It's the mind craving permanence, wanting this car to look permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car can't look permanently beautiful because it's subject to impermanence. This is a universal truth. The universal truth of impermanence is that everything around us is constantly changing. But if your mind's craving for this car to look permanently beautiful, when you see the scratch, you'll get frustrated. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because when we go through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. That's what we do. But because of the natural laws and this universal truth of impermanence, this car is going to deteriorate. If it wasn't somebody scratching the car, the sun would have faded the paint, or maybe the tires would have needed to be changed, or the upholstery would have been ripped or torn or something like this. So as long as the mind craves permanence, your mind's going to experience discontentedness. And as I mentioned, the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You can actually independently verify what I'm sharing with you. Look at your own life. Look at a situation where you've recently been angry or frustrated or annoyed. There was something your mind wanted, right? It might have been yesterday or last week or last month. There was something your mind wanted in that situation. You were expecting something. You were longing, yearning for something. You were craving permanence. And if the mind would have got what it wanted, it would have been so happy or excited, perhaps. But because the mind didn't get what it wanted in that situation, you got angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. And what the mind usually does with its lack of wisdom in the unenlightened state is it will attribute these feelings to something external. And now when you experience those painful feelings, you will tend to push people away. This is called aversion, where you push people away or you push a situation away. You might have pushed your friends or family away at different times, thinking that they were causing you to be angry or frustrated. But you can see that's not the real cause of the problem, because if they were the real cause of the problem, when you push them away, you would have been peaceful and joyful for the rest of your life because you've just solved your problem. But that didn't solve the problem. It doesn't mean they weren't doing something that was unwise. They could have very easily been doing something that was unwise. But your craving for permanence is what's causing the mind to be angry or frustrated, craving for people to do things a certain way. And one of the things that the mind will do is push this person or push this situation away because it's perceiving the problem and the cause of that problem to be this person. And now an individual can't live harmoniously with all beings. Or you might have been bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. This is like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear this person into doing things a certain way. And again, this individual doing this, you wouldn't be able to live harmoniously with all people. Or you might be putting your expectations on people, trying to control them and force them to do things your way. You might have been in arguments with people where you were trying to adamantly convince them that what they were doing, they needed to change because they were making you angry. You might have been arguing to almost to death to convince this person to stop doing what they're doing because they were making you angry. This is your mind having a lack of wisdom, of understanding what the true cause of this problem is. The true cause is within one's own mind, where it's craving for things to be permanent, wanting things to be a certain way. And now when you understand this and you can independently verify it, the third noble truth is the Buddha explaining to you that you can eliminate this discontentedness by eliminating your craving, your longing, your yearning, wanting things to be a certain way, training the mind to no longer form its inner feelings based on external conditions, getting to the point where you experience unconditioned happiness, where the mind's just always happy. But if you keep allowing the mind to form its happiness based on some condition, then you're going to be stuck in this continuous cycle because you're going to crave and long and yearn for things to be a certain way. If you get it, you'll be happy. But if you don't get it, you're going to be sad or frustrated or irritated. Now you're going to push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people. And now when you're experiencing those painful feelings, the mind's lack of wisdom doesn't know how to get out of those. So what it does is it craves more. It will crave something else in order to chase after these pleasant feelings. So the mind stays stuck in this continuous cycle because of its lack of wisdom, where the real solution is to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, where the mind's not longing, yearning, and wanting things to be a certain way. But you can't be over here on the other side where your mind is dull and lethargic and you could care less what's going on in the world either. You need to come to the middle where the mind can gradually pursue things as a goal, as an objective, or an interest, where you're not forming your inner feelings based on whether you acquire that thing or not. And this is something the mind needs to learn how to do. And the Buddha has the complete perfect plan to train the mind to be able to do this. It's called the Eightfold Path. This is the fourth noble truth, that it's the Eightfold Path that is the core central teaching that is guiding you to be able to train your mind, to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. And this Eightfold Path is comprised of 8 individual factors that are helping you to be able to kind of tune the mind in, to be able to train the mind to get to the point where it's performing optimally. And you can learn this, you can practice it, you can see the truth that it actually works. So you can see that elimination of craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning, this wanting and expecting things to be a certain way is the way to get to peacefulness and joy. If you go back to that situation where you're with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you guys broke up, and you were maybe frustrated or agitated, annoyed for a period of time, at some point, your mind chose to let go. You said, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And you regained your peacefulness. Or you're like, you know what? If she would like to move to another part of the world, so be it. And you let go. And when you let go, that's where the peace and the joy came back into the mind. So what I'm sharing with you is that your own mind is causing these feelings, but you need to be able to independently verify that and see that for yourself. As long as you keep blaming other people for what you're experiencing in life, you're going to keep experiencing the same difficulties and struggles over and over. So the Buddha brings your mind's attention to the fact that it's craving, desire, attachment. It's this holding on that's causing the mind to be discontent. And then he shares with you various tools and techniques of how to eliminate this and train your mind to no longer do this so you can get to the peace and the joy. You can get to the focus and the concentration, the clarity and the deep memory. You can get to the relationships, both personally and professionally, that are really blossoming because you're no longer blaming other people for the things you experience. You're no longer being bitter and harsh and hostile to people, that you've trained your mind to no longer do that. So it's training the mind to eliminate this cravings, this longing, this yearning, this wanting things to be a certain way. And one of the key trainings that the Buddha shares is breathing mindfulness meditation. That's what we did this morning. This meditation is training your mind to let go. The goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that because when you're focused on the breath and you're moving off the breath, we teach you to cut off and let go and bring the mind back to the breath. Your goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to train the mind to more easily let go, let go, let go. Because that's what the mind doesn't know how to do in the unenlightened state. It holds on and it's craving permanence. So if 15, 20, 30 times during your meditation, you had to let go, this is actually really good for the mind because you're training the mind over multiple sessions to let go, let go, let go. And you would like to build up this meditation practice where you're consistently training the mind over a long-term period to let go, let go, let go, let go. So the thing that I'm going to teach you now is what is merit. This topic of what is merit is something that is also training the mind to let go. Because at the basis of this topic of merit is something called generosity. The Buddha teaches you to practice generosity in order to train the mind to let go. Not only breathing mindfulness meditation and other techniques, but he's also teaching you to practice generosity, where you're giving and you're sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. Because when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you're going to tend to be selfish. You're going to have a difficult time sharing with other people. But when you can learn to live open-handedly and be joyful in giving and sharing with others, this will help your mind to be trained to let go. So the Buddha was a prince. He was destined to become a king. He was very rich and very wealthy in this royal family. But he stepped away from all of that and went into this life of homelessness, where he just basically accepted food and clothing and shelter and medical care from people to help him sustain his life. During his lifetime, he didn't even accept anything like gold or silver. This was the currency at the time. He didn't accept land or animals or any kind of material wealth or anything like that. It was only the things that he needed in order to sustain his life. So one of the things you're going to hear with merit is this is a practice of generosity in order to help the teachings of the Buddha continue in the world. Because if you learn and investigate the teachings of the Buddha and you're able to see that they're actually true through the training of your mind and the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life, at some point, you won't have any doubt that these teachings are leading to an improved condition of mind. When you first come to the path, students will usually have doubt about the teachings, and that's very normal. But the way you eliminate your doubt is not through blind belief or faith or anything like this. You eliminate your doubt through investigation of the teachings, through examination of them. And now as you do that, you can start to reflect to independently verify whether they're true or they're false, and then you can practice them, training your mind, getting to the point where you can see without a shadow of a doubt that they're actually true. And as you do that, you might be interested in seeing other people get access to those teachings so that others can benefit from them. And this is what the practice of merit is that you get to the point where you're practicing generosity towards the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha so that other people can gain access to them. You're going to need to practice generosity in order to get to enlightenment with anybody and anybody that you would like to practice generosity with. And that's the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. But then there's this type of merit that we call, this is wholesome Kamma, or wholesome results from your decisions, where you're sharing your generosity to help other people get access to the teachings. When you're practicing generosity, you can do simple things to get started. Like say you're walking into a store and you see that someone's behind you, and maybe you hold the door for that person to go through. Because you're going to go through anyway, you might as well hold the door for someone else. This is like 3 seconds, 5 seconds of extra time, effort, energy, or resources. But when you're doing this, you need to be sure you're not doing it with any expectation of anything in return. Because if you're standing there holding the door, expecting a thank you, and they don't say thank you, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be agitated or annoyed. But it's your own mind that's causing that because you're wanting everybody to say thank you. That's the craving for permanence. The fact is that you could hold the door for 100 people and not everybody is going to say thank you because of impermanence. That there's going to be some people who are so deep into thought, thinking about what it is that they need to get out of this store, that they're not even going to see you standing there holding the door. They're just going to go right on through. So if you're practicing generosity, you need to do it with the goal of enhancing the quality of your mind, that you understand that you're working to train your mind to let go, that you're not doing it because you want something from someone else, but you're doing it because you understand it's a wise practice in order to enhance the quality of your mind. And that would be the only reason why you're interested in practicing generosity, to is enhance the quality of your mind. You're not even wanting a thank you. You're not even expecting a thank you from someone. You're doing it because you know it's enhancing the quality of your mind. So you would need to practice generosity with many people around you, whether it's your parents or your siblings, your neighbors, your coworkers, different people you come in contact with. You would like to practice generosity with all those different people at different times, doing it from the middle way. Because if you shared your time, effort, energy, and resources extensively with craving, desire, attachment, you're not going to have the basic needs that you need in order to sustain life. But if you were all the way over here on the other side, where you were never sharing, the mind's going to be quite selfish, and now your mind's holding on. So you like to come to the middle, even with something like generosity, where you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. So this is what generosity is. But merit is frequently choosing to help others gain access to the teachings of the Buddha. So people will share their time, effort, energy, and resources to be able to help people do that. You might see people around the temple kind of sweeping, keeping things clean. You might see people donating toilet paper or soap or tissues. You might see people donating financial support to be able to pay for electric and water. You might see people donating the actual things that you see around you. Like everything you see around you right now has all been donated. Even the land that we're sitting on right now, at one time was owned by a Thai person. This temple was created over 500 years ago, and somebody had experienced enough benefit in the teachings of the Buddha, and they said, let me donate my land so that other people can gain access to the teachings of the Buddha. And then there were people 500 years ago that came together and shared resources to be able to start building these buildings. And then a little over 50 years ago, this particular building was built. And then when I first moved into this building to start sharing the teachings, it was pretty run down and it wasn't really well taken care of. And over the course of multiple years, students have contributed to be able to help us to be able to make this room nicer for those of you guys that are coming to learn now. At one time, I used to have this beat up old projector that people could barely see what was actually being projected. And there were students that got enough benefit out of the teachings and they said, we would like to get a projector so that other people can learn what it is that you're sharing. And then there were people that were willing to donate to put in air conditioning. At one time, I used to sit here meditating. I could feel the sweat underneath my clothes just rolling down the skin, right? But now we've got air conditioning. And then there were people that decided that a sound system would be great so that people could hear me and I wouldn't have to talk so strongly and my voice could be saved. And then there could be people online that would be able to learn. And slowly but surely, all these resources have come together to be able to help other people get access to the teachings. And a little over a month ago, we started a project here to be able to revitalize this room. And now you see the results of that, where we just opened it about 3 or 4 weeks ago with a completely refurbished classroom where you guys now get to enjoy all the beauty of this place and some nice bathrooms that are actually functioning. We actually had bathrooms that weren't really functioning before, but now we've got this nice facility because people chose to practice generosity, which produces merit, so that then people can get access to the teachings and you guys can comfortably learn and grow and develop. So this is what merit is. And the Buddha described that we should practice merit in giving and sharing with virtuous practitioners, teachers, and people who are sharing the teachings that are virtuous. He referred to this as the Aryan Sangha. This is a Pali term that means the noble community. He talked about anybody that's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, or anybody who's practicing to get into the 4 stages of enlightenment. Because if you can imagine, during the lifetime of a Buddha, there were thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people learning with him, and not everybody was practicing the teachings closely. There was kind of a core group of people around the Buddha that were practicing very closely, but on the outer fringes, people weren't necessarily practicing very closely. So the Buddha suggested and taught that it would be wise to support the people who are sharing the teachings and are practicing them the closest. And he gave guidance to look for individuals who are practicing closely and that are in one of these 4 stages of enlightenment. So in terms of understanding the difference between generosity and merit, both of these are based in generosity, both merit and generosity. They're both based in generosity. But if you're trying to find out whether what you're doing is merit or whether it's just pure generosity, which, by the way, are both helpful for the mind, you can ask yourself this question. What it was the offering to a teacher to support the continued sharing of the teachings of the Buddha to help others attain enlightenment? And if the answer is no, you're experiencing these benefits where you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment in the mind. That's the enhancement of the mind, training the mind to let go. Because any practice of generosity with anybody, even an animal, is going to train your mind to let go. But then you can also experience the benefit of eliminating this selfishness where the mind is no longer experiencing the holding on, and you can produce this wholesome result. And depending on who you share your generosity with is going to produce either more or less benefit. So you're experiencing benefit even if you're practicing generosity. But if the answer to this question is yes, then you're still eliminating craving, desire, attachment, and you're still eliminating selfishness, but you're actually helping people to gain access to the teachings of the Buddhas. Because the very best gift that you could ever give to somebody is to be able to help them to get to the elimination of anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. You need to be able to do that for yourself in your own practice, but then also making it available for other people would be the very best gift that you could ever give to anybody. So if the offering or the generosity that you're practicing is to help others to gain access to the teachings, this is what we refer to as merit. This is a unique type of wholesome Kamma that is produced through generosity. These are the words of the Buddha, where he's sharing with you about it's important to make gifts to people who are in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment or practicing to get into one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, because those are the individuals who understand the teachings the most. So I'll read this to you guys. It's titled An Unsurpassed Field of Merit for the World. Monks, these 8 persons are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. What 8? The stream enterer, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of stream entry, the once returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of once returning, the non-returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of non-returning, the arahant, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of arahantship. These 8 persons, monks, are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. So I'm just going to pause here and explain this, because what he's describing is the 4 stages of enlightenment. The stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. This is how the Buddha would refer to the 4 stages of enlightenment. And these are individuals who are practicing the teachings very closely, because they would be experiencing improved qualities of mind and improved quality to their life. So the Buddha is describing these individuals and saying these would be the individuals that would be wise to make offerings to. And there's ways for you to verify whether somebody is in one of these 4 stages of enlightenment. In general, when someone's first getting started, the way to determine whether someone's practicing the teachings closely or not is pay attention to the quality of their mind. This is guidance from the Buddha, where he describes an individual who's not practicing his teachings as being muddle-minded. If somebody is lacking focus, concentration, clarity, or deep memory, then their mind is still polluted with these pollutions that he discovered. And therefore, this person isn't practicing the teachings very closely. So if you're in the presence of someone, whether they're wearing an orange robe and shaving their hair, whether they're wearing white clothes and shaving their hair, no matter what it is, if you're seeing a really muddled mind and lacking concentration and they're confused, they can't talk about the teachings with ease, then that means they're not practicing the teachings very closely. Because if you practice the teachings closely, you would be able to purify the mind and you'd be able to be focused, concentrated, have clarity and deep memory. So this is an easy way to kind of look at somebody's practice, not in a judgmental way. You're not interested in judging others, but you're just observing the quality of your mind. Because if there was somebody, say, as an ordained practitioner or a teacher who were doing unwise things, like maybe they're using drugs or alcohol, or maybe they're gambling, or maybe they're being abusive to animals or people through their intentions, their speech, or their actions. If you choose to support that, that's what you're going to be supporting. You're going to be supporting the drugs and alcohol or the gambling or these other things that someone might be doing that's unwise. And what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to do is support individuals who are actually sharing the teachings, because they're helping other people to be able to train their mind and get to enlightenment. Where these people who aren't practicing the teachings closely, they're not actually able to help other people because they haven't actually helped themselves yet. So how could they help other people? So the Buddha is teaching to share offerings with people who are practicing the teachings closely. He goes on here, he says, the four practicing the way and the four established in the fruit. This is the upright community, composed in wisdom and virtuous behavior. So this is where he's teaching you to look for individuals who are practicing the teachings closely. You might think that during the lifetime of the Buddha that he was the only person teaching, but there were other people who were teaching and claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. But he knew that it wasn't their teachings, that it was his teachings that led to enlightenment. So there were other people that were teaching various things, and he knew that it was his community that was practicing the teaching. So he often would refer to them as the upright community or the straight community. And he's saying these are the individuals that are composed of wisdom, understanding how to help you to get to enlightenment. And you can see that through their virtuous behavior or their moral conduct. Because in order to get to enlightenment, you're functioning as a better and better human being. As an unenlightened being, the mind will tend to function kind of like an animal. We're not animals, we're human beings, but an unenlightened mind will tend to kind of function a bit like an animal. But an individual who is enlightened is becoming a better and better human being. It's kind of like an evolution of our species where we can interact with each other in a more loving and kind and gentler way, a more kind way, a more respectful way. And now that individual is becoming a better and better human being. So here he says, for people intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions, what is given to the community bears great fruit. What he's talking about here about making merit that ripens in the acquisitions, what he means is that by you coming in contact with someone who's in one of the four stages of enlightenment and you're making offerings to them, yes, it's supporting that individual to be able to share the teachings with others, but it's helping you too. Because by you coming in contact with that person, you're gaining wisdom of how to get to enlightenment yourself. So ripening in the acquisitions is that if you're encountering individuals who are in the first, second, third, or fourth stage of enlightenment, you're able to cultivate wisdom of how to get to the first, second, third, or fourth stage of enlightenment yourself. That's the acquisitions. You can mature the mind to get to this point where the mind is acquiring these improved qualities of mind, these improved attainments. When he's talking about what is given to the community bears great fruit, what he's talking about here is that any offerings that someone makes to a teacher or a community like this, there should be a small amount of that is used for that particular teacher to maybe sustain their life, like food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. But you should see things coming back to the community. You should see classes and courses and retreats that are being offered at no cost. You should see a comfortable center to be able to learn in with meditation cushions and things to be able to learn and grow and develop. That when someone's making an offering to a teacher, they shouldn't be putting it in their pocket, wearing a Rolex watch, driving around with a Rolls Royce Royce or Mercedes Benz and things like this, because those funds that are coming to the teacher should be used to benefit the community so that the teachings can continue to flourish within the community. The Thai people take this very seriously. There's actually been individuals in the past who haven't necessarily practiced what the Buddha taught. They were maybe enriching themselves with some type of offerings. There were people who were flying around in chartered jets or having, like a Gucci sunglasses or Fendi bags and things like this. And the Thai government and the police decided to try to arrest this person. And they tried to arrest them, but they left and went to the USA. And they put out an Interpol warrant, and they had the U.S. police arrest this person who was in California, and they extradited this person back to Thailand. And they went through the court system, and they were found guilty of fraud, and they were sentenced to 20 years in prison because they were enriching themselves with the money from the community rather than using it to benefit the community. So this is taken very seriously here in Thailand, where depending on where you live in your home country, people might be using teachings similar to this to kind of enrich themselves, where this isn't what the Buddha taught, right? So you need to be able to get past that and be able to see that there's individuals in the world that are truly looking to help others to be able to learn and grow and develop on this path. And if we are interested in seeing that occur in our communities, we're going to need to make wise decisions about who we choose to support and look at that person's practice to choose whether or not it would be wise to support this individual in the work that they're doing to share the teachings. Whereas if you're seeing somebody go around enriching themselves, then that's probably not a person that you're interested in supporting necessarily. But if you see someone who's genuinely interested in helping others to get to this enlightened mental state, this might be someone that you choose to support. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you here, is to be wise and use discernment when you're making your generous offerings, is to make sure you're making wise decisions about where you send your generosity. These are some things that I usually share on this topic, that practicing generosity helps a practitioner to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, which is the cause of those discontent feelings. That's what we were just talking about. These are the words of the Buddha where he talks about practicing generosity will help you to eliminate the stain of selfishness. He referred to it like a stain, like a pollution in the mind. And as I mentioned, as an individual is eliminating their doubt about the teachings, more and more they have confidence in the Buddha, the teachings, the community, their teacher, and your own ability to get to enlightenment. And as that confidence is increasing, you'll have more and more interest to perhaps support individuals to receive this guidance. There's a misunderstanding about merit that you'll see here in Thailand, and you'll see it in other places too. Sometimes people think that when you make an offering, this merit is producing wholesome results, and now you can transfer that wholesome result to other people. There's like a little ritual, a little ceremony that's even done here in some places in Thailand, where they have like a little urn of water and a little bowl. And then as you make your offering, they will have you pour this water out, and it kind of is thought that you're transferring the benefits to other people. But if you understand the benefits of merit, then you understand you can actually transfer the benefits of that to somebody else, because the benefits of producing merit is that it's enhancing the quality of your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. It's training your mind to let go. It's training your mind to not have selfishness. And you can't transfer that benefit to somebody else. It's just not possible. So if you're in an environment where somebody's saying, hey, get that little water and pour it out, it's up to you what you choose to do. But just understand that you're not truly transferring your benefits of what you've acquired to somebody else, because it's not possible for you to transfer that. Here's some teachings from the Buddha where he talks about what you should do in terms of purifying your offering, that before you offer something, that the donor should be joyful before giving. And then he's talking to a female. So he says she has a calm and confident mind in the act of giving. And then afterwards, this individual should still be joyful. Essentially what he's doing is he's teaching you how to protect your mind here, that before you make an offering, that you should think through whether this is a wise decision or not. And, is this going to hurt you, or is it going to cause harm to others by you making this offering? In terms of, you need to make sure that you still have the needs met for you and your family. Whereas if you were giving extensively, this is going to cause harm to you. So you need to make sure that you've put some thought into any type of offering that you're going to potentially make. And now you can be joyful as you're getting ready to make this offering. And then while you're making an offering, the mind can be calm and confident, right? Then afterwards, the mind can still be joyful, because after someone makes an offering, they could have remorse where it's like, oh, I gave too much. Why did I give so much? Now I don't have what I need. Or someone could be remorseful and say, oh, I didn't give enough. I'm so selfish. Why didn't I give more? Right? So you would like to protect your mind where you can be joyful before and after giving. And while giving, the mind can be calm and confident. Then he talks about the type of individual to receive an offering. He says someone that's free from craving, anger, and ignorance. These are 3 pollutions that are in the mind that we talked about 2 weeks ago, and I taught this in this particular program. So if someone's free of craving, anger, and ignorance, the mind is actually enlightened. Or he says someone who's practicing for the removal of craving, anger, and ignorance. So this is putting some discernment or wise decision-making into who you choose to make offerings to. When the Buddha was teaching, one of the things that one of his students asked him is like, can you boil down everything that you taught into what can I be doing on a day-to-day basis in order to be making my way to enlightenment? What's some simple things that I can be doing to make my way to enlightenment? And of course, you need to know the detailed teachings in order to get to enlightenment. But he talked about these things that you could be doing frequently on a day-to-day basis to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And this is called the way of practice. This is what an individual would be doing on a daily basis, is practicing generosity, improving their moral conduct, and then practicing meditation. These are the 3 things that you would like to be doing frequently on a daily basis, is giving and sharing with the people around you. This is going to help your mind to let go. You can be doing that frequently. Then you would like to improve your moral conduct, because there are certain things that you're doing right now that are unwise. Maybe you're being bitter and harsh and hostile with the people around you. You're going to need to learn how to improve that. And the teachings of the Buddha are going to guide you in being able to do that. You might be having resentfulness and animosity. You might be causing harm through lying or slander and gossiping people, and things like this. So you can clean all that up through gaining the wisdom of wholesome moral conduct that doesn't cause harm. Because as long as you're putting out harm through your moral conduct, this harm is going to come back to you. So you can improve this through improving your moral conduct. Then there's meditation. This is also something that you would do frequently on a daily basis. And the Buddha teaches you these 4 different meditations, 2 primary meditations, but total of 4 that are going to help you to transform your mind. So this is called the way of practice. And by practicing generosity to produce merit, this is what allows us to then learn the moral conduct and the meditation. If there wasn't any merit being produced, there wouldn't be any moral conduct or meditation being able to be taught, because there wouldn't be anybody in the community to be able to teach these things. So this is called the way of practice. And this is what you'd like to be doing frequently on a daily basis. Then this is a teaching from the Buddha where it's very impactful, in my opinion. When I first saw this, I was like, wow, this really kind of encapsulates why generosity is so important. So I'll share this one with you. It's called, If Beings Knew the Results of Giving and Sharing. Monks, if beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of selfishness obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last bite, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it, if there were someone to share it with. But because beings do not know, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they eat without having given, and the stain of selfishness obsesses them and takes root in their minds. So here what the Buddha is talking about the results of giving and sharing, this is enlightenment. He's saying if beings knew how peaceful and joyful the enlightened mind was, and that it's generosity that will lead you to that, you would not eat without having shared it, if there was someone to share it with. So he's talking about food here. And this is one of the reasons why here in Asia, we tend to share our food. We tend to put the food in the middle, and the whole family just kind of eats food and kind of shares it. Depending on where you come from, it may or may not be that way. It might be that you kind of have a certain plate of food, and that's your food. Oftentimes when we're animals, we kind of hoard food, right? This is kind of a very animalistic instinct. But when you can share your food, this will help you to live open-handedly, sharing with with other people. Because places here in Asia, some places are quite impoverished and they don't really have many resources. So if all the food goes into the middle and you've got a family of 4 or 6 or 8 people that are eating, everybody takes like 2 or 3 spoonfuls and they put it on their plate and then they eat. And then you take another 2 or 3 spoonfuls and then you eat. And at the end of this meal, we might not all be full, but at least we all got a little bit of food, right? Because we shared. Whereas if we kind of hoard the food, then we don't necessarily all are able to get a certain amount of food in our stomach. So this is a way that you can actually practice. You can share your food. You can put it in the middle of the table, and this will help you and your family and those around you to be able to learn how to gradually share and gradually eat. If you go get a bag of potato chips, you could pop it open, share it with your friends. And if it comes back and there's just one potato chip left in the bag, okay, just eat your one potato chip and go get another bag, right? It's not that expensive, right? So you could actually learn how to share your food, and this will help your mind to let go. So the Buddha is teaching you here to share because it leads to this improved mental state. But because beings do not know the peace and the joy of this enlightened mental state and that it's generosity that leads to it, they eat without having given, and the stain of selfishness obsesses them and takes root in their mind. So you can give and share, and you'll see that your mind will experience more and more joy. It'll be more and more uplifted. There's some other teachings here. I'll just kind of skip over these, but I'll share this one with you. This is where the Buddha is talking about gifts of teachings is superior than gifts of material things. He says, monks, there are these 2 kinds of gifts, a gift of material things and a gift of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of gifts, this is supreme, a gift of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of sharing of material things and sharing of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of sharing, this is supreme, sharing of the teachings. There are these 2 kinds of assistance with material things and assistance with the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of assistance, this is supreme, assistance with the teachings. So what he's saying is the very best gift that you could ever give to anyone is the teachings, because that's what's going to lead to their complete elimination of all discontent feelings, all the anger, the sadness, the frustration in others. So the way I think about this is like if there was a button A and you could press this button and your family would be angry and frustrated and agitated, experiencing stress and anxiety for the rest of their life, or you could press button B where they would instantly become peaceful and joyful for the rest of their life. Which button would you press, A or B? Which button would you press? B? Okay, you'd press B, right? Well, unfortunately, it's not a button that we can press in order to help our family to be peaceful and joyful for the rest of their life. But what the Buddha is teaching is that by making the teachings available for people through sharing of the teachings, that's what's going to help them to be able to get to the peace and joy. Without the sharing of the teachings, there wouldn't be the ability for people to get to that peace and joy. So that's one of the reasons why he taught merit. He knows that it was generosity that helped him to get to enlightenment. So he was helping other people to be able to see that same truth. Because remember, he was a prince destined to become a king. He was very rich and very wealthy. He stepped away from that because he understood that that's not what led to peacefulness and happiness. So he stepped away from it. So he didn't teach generosity to enrich himself because he was already rich at one point. He was teaching generosity because you can see in his teachings that he practiced an extensive amount of generosity. And that's one of the things that led to his enlightenment. So he knew that that's what would lead to your enlightenment too. So that's why he taught generosity, so that you could understand that this was an important practice to be able to train your mind. And here's some of the things that he's sharing about that. Here's the last thing that I'll share on this topic, and then I'll open up to whatever questions you guys have. Here, this one is titled Mutual Support Between Monks, Brahmins, and Householders. I'll first explain to you guys what a Brahmin is before I teach you this one. What a Brahmin is that during the lifetime of the Buddha, and even now, there are individuals who we might consider to be Hindu priests. During the lifetime of the Buddha, there were individuals who were born into a certain family. There was a very strong caste system in place. And about 15% of society were considered to be Brahmin. These were considered to be holy people and spiritual people. And if you were born into this family, you were considered to be that type of person. And all the rest of us were taught and convinced, not by the Buddha, but by other people, that you needed to go to these Brahmin in order to pay them money And if you paid them money, they would do a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship on your behalf, and then your life was going to get better. So this bred a lot of corruption, that people would go to the Brahmin and they would say, hey, I need you to do this particular ceremony. And they would say, okay, that's $5 or whatever the currency was at the time. And then you would go home, and then you would come back the next day and say, hey, I need you to do this other ceremony. And they say, oh, now it's $10 for that one. Oh, why? Oh, because I said so. And these people were taught that they couldn't do anything to improve their life. That it was only these Brahmin that could do a ceremony on your behalf. And it was only them that could help you to make your life better. And this isn't actually true. And the Buddha taught that this wasn't true. He taught that it's based on your decisions that lead to improvement in your life. It's based on you training your mind that's going to lead to improvement in your life. So these Brahmin or these Hindu priests, while they were out there doing these rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, they were also teaching a certain amount of moral conduct. So they would come to the Buddha oftentimes to learn his teachings. So here the Buddha is teaching about this mutual support between monks and then these Brahmin and householders. Monks, Brahmins and householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms food, lodgings, and medicines in time of sickness. And you monks are very helpful to Brahmins and householders as you teach them the teachings that are good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, with the correct meaning and wording. And you proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment in complete purity. Thus, monks, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and making a complete end of discontentedness. So what he's talking about here is this mutual support between the teachers and the people who are practicing the teachings closely and the household practitioners. That if the teachers are sharing the teachings, helping the household practitioners to learn and grow and develop and create a better and better life, as the individuals would like, they might choose to support the teachers to be able to do those things. Because if a teacher is able to kind of walk away from worldly life and get really deep into the teachings and train their own mind, cultivating the wisdom about the path to enlightenment, then they would have the wisdom to be able to help others. So the Buddha put in this mutual support between householders and the ordained practitioners and teachers so that he could ensure that the teachings would continue in the world. Because as someone's mind's becoming more and more and more peaceful, if these people were in a career and working in a job or something like this, they wouldn't necessarily have an interest to share the teachings with someone else. But the way that the Buddha created this is that you don't actually eat as a teacher unless you share the teachings. It's still your choice to do that, but he instituted this so that people could be fully involved in helping their students, and that they didn't have this side business on the side making money where they kind of give up all of that and now they share the teachings with the students to be able to help them to improve the condition of their mind in their life. And now if the students choose, they might choose to support that individual to be able to share the teachings in the world. And here you can see in the words of the Buddha how he's talking about that, where the teachers are sharing and practicing generosity, and then students, if they would like, they can practice generosity as well. Whenever you're learning from a teacher, there should be no expectation from that teacher from anything from their students. And that includes me. I have no expectation that a student would ever support me. I'm here to help students regardless of any kind of support. But because there are some students who do choose to support me, it allows me to support everybody and anybody. I can support anybody who is interested in getting to enlightenment, and I don't have any expectation of anything from that person. And because of people being able to support what we're doing, I can support people all across the world. There's people that are on like remote islands off the coast of Africa, or even in African villages that maybe live on $50 a month, and they have access to the internet. They might not even have a library where they live, but they have access to the internet and they can learn these teachings. And I don't need anything from this person. I don't want anything from this person, but I can just support them and help them to be able to get to enlightenment. So if you're ever interested in providing support to a temple or a ordained practitioner or a teacher, it will be wise for you to look for someone who's practicing the teachings closely, observing the quality of their mind. That's going to be an indication for you that they're learning and practicing closely. And then make wise decisions for yourself to be in the middle so that you're not overextending yourself in terms of any generosity of your time, effort, energy, or resources, but also making sure that you're not over here where you're selfish too and you're just holding on to your resources. But remember, you're always interested in practicing generosity with anybody and everybody around you, and you you would like to do this frequently. And this can be your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. So in terms of generosity, maybe you go outside and you see that your neighbor's trash is blown all over their yard. And maybe you take some time to pick up their trash and they're not even home, or maybe they're at work, and you don't need a thank you. You don't need anything from them. You just collect up all the trash and put it away, and you don't even need to tell them what you did. This is a great way to practice generosity. But then merit is where you're helping the teachings of the Buddha to be shared in the world so that other people can get access to them. And now this is the very best thing that could ever happen for anybody. So one of the things that I share whenever I teach this topic is that for anybody who has chosen to support me over the years, I always like to make sure they understand I'm very appreciative of that support. Because if it wasn't for that support, I wouldn't be able to do what it is that I do to share these teachings with others. And for those of you guys that maybe this is your first time ever learning with me, this isn't usually the topic that you learn when you first get started. It's just that this is where we are in our program. We're in chapter 10. There's plenty of other things that I've taught up to this point for students. Understand that you can come and learn with me at any time, and there's no expectation of anything from you. You can digest all the resources and all the content that we shared at no cost. You can get videos, podcasts, you can get these books and audiobooks that I share. It's all available at no cost. You can download our books for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. All these books are available for you. I suggest students start with the first book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And again, this is available at no cost by downloading it. If you would like a printed version, you just need to reimburse us for our printing cost so that we can purchase more for other people. And then you can even get personal guidance. If you would like to sit down and get help talking one-on-one, that's even available at no cost. If I were to put a price tag on my courses or on the services that I share, right away, the people who have the most challenges in life, that are struggling the most, they wouldn't be able to get the help they need to get out of that. So having a price or a fixed amount that people have to pay for a course or retreat would immediately block other people that really need the teachings the most to be able to get access to those teachings. So that's why whenever I teach, I don't have any price. There's no price. There's no expectation of anything from anybody. People can learn with classes and courses and retreats here at the temple, online, or anywhere in the world. It's available for people at no cost, including personal guidance as well. So what I'm going to do is just stop here and see if you guys have any questions on this topic of merit. You're welcome to ask anything you like by using the microphones, or those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions you like. So is there anyone that has any questions? Yeah, Khalid?
Does merit apply only to the teachings of the Buddha, or it could carry to other things that people do in life? So I'll replace the batteries. So if it were to, okay, no, that's the question. And then I'll...
Yeah. By the time somebody is making their way on the journey to enlightenment, they eventually get to a point where they've eliminated their doubt, and they will be able to see that it's these teachings that are leading to enlightenment. And there's no other teachings out there that I've ever seen that are going to accomplish the things that the Buddha's teachings will accomplish. Oftentimes what we see is we see a bunch of belief, and then we see this kind of afterlife that someone might be aspiring for, where what the Buddha is teaching you to do is get to a wonderful life now in this life. And I haven't seen anything in the world that is teaching that and is able to accomplish the elimination of anger and stress and anxiety and guilt and shame and fear. So the merit that we're talking about here is to get access to the teachings of the Buddha, because by the time somebody is maybe choosing to practice some of this, they get to the point where they have no doubt that these teachings are leading to an improved condition of mind. So while it may be beneficial and somebody might choose to support a church or a synagogue or a mosque or things like this, and that might be what someone chooses to do, we wouldn't consider that merit for what we're talking about here, because it's not to help someone get to this enlightened mental state. But that is a practice of generosity, and it is helping to enhance the quality of someone's mind. So even like supporting an animal shelter or a child's orphanage or something like this, that's generosity, and those things are helpful for an individual's mind. But it's not going to have the same level of quality of help in the world as helping people get to enlightenment. So we can help an orphanage, we can help other places. That's something that we do in terms of practicing our generosity, but it's not as high of quality as what we consider this. This is merit, which is a much, much higher quality, because it's making the teachings that are going to truly end the suffering and despair in the world. It's making that available to people. And that's the highest quality of generosity that one could practice. And that's why we call it merit.
Okay, so follow up. So if you were, you explained that people can donate. People can donate funds. People can donate time. They can assist you so in ways that you could be available to assist others or to reach alignment. But if, let's say, has nothing to do with learning and to the path to enlightenment, or nothing to do with Buddhism, if one were to assist a classroom teacher, okay, with to teach kids a certain topic, and then person would buy the curriculum for them so that they can teach the kids. That will be more generosity, because it has nothing to do with the path to enlightenment.
Exactly. Okay. So like your kid's grade school, right? Like if you're helping the 5th grade teacher to buy some rulers or scissors or glue for a classroom project, that's generosity, and that's helpful for you. But it's not going to be the same quality of generosity as something like helping people get access to the teachings that are going to end their suffering and discontentedness.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this is where we can balance things, right? It's not like one or the other. We can do multiple things. We don't have to just make offerings to the teachings of the Buddha. We can also help orphanages. We can also help animal shelters. We can balance our generosity across all these different things. But what the Buddha is teaching you is this unique type of generosity called merit. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so merit helps to kind of eliminate pain and frustration, clear the mind. So, but is it like eliminating all the negative or frustration, anger, also a craving? And also, like, is it like by nature principle that all the frustration is something that we need to kind of cut off instead of just let it be and accept the up and downs in life, rather than try to get to the kind of state where you were just always peaceful? So is that like also a permanent craving to be permanently peaceful?
Yeah, so you don't have to pursue enlightenment as a craving, desire, attachment. A craving, desire, attachment is a longing, yearning for something, forming your inner feelings based on whether you get that or not. You can pursue enlightenment as a goal, as an objective or an interest, but you need to make sure you understand what a true goal is, because oftentimes in people's minds, it's a craving, desire, attachment that's masquerading as a goal. So if somebody really wants to get a master's degree and they get that, they feel so happy. But if they don't get it, they feel angry or frustrated. That's not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. What a true goal is where you're working towards something through wise decision making, and you're not forming your inner feelings on whether you accomplish that thing or not. You can look at it and you're like, okay, I'm 80% of the way to my master's degree. Let me look at this. Do I need to extend my timeline here? And that's going to help me. Or do I need to add more resources here? Or, you know what, maybe I'm happy with or maybe I'm fine and content with the 80% and I don't need to go any further. I'm just completely fine with the 80%. So you can progress towards enlightenment without forming your inner feelings based on it. It's a goal, it's an objective, it's an interest that you're working towards. The unenlightened mind can see very clearly, typically, the craving, the desire, the attachment. When you learn about it, you can learn about that and you can see it where the mind's pulling towards something. And it can usually see this other side too, where the mind's dull and lethargic and sitting around unmotivated and lacking ambition. But it's very challenging for the mind to see this middle way and practice this middle way. And that's what you need to be able to train the mind to do, not just with enlightenment, but every single aspect of your life. That whether it's improved income or whether it's improved skills and abilities in your career and all these different things, you need to be able to gradually work towards these things as a goal, objective, or interest. And you can do that with enlightenment itself. And you don't need the frustration. You talked about, can we just let it be? Well, you could, that's your choice. You could just subject yourself to say, you know what, I'm just going to be angry or frustrated and irritated the rest of my life. I'm just going to be having stress and anxiety and feeling guilty and shameful for the rest of my life. And you could accept that. That's one way to live life. But there's this better way of life. There's this way of getting to this peace and joy as a goal or objective. You just need the wisdom of how to do that, and understand that the unenlightened mind is going to try to justify all these reasons why it doesn't have to do that, because the unenlightened mind wants to be kind of lazy and it wants to be complacent, and it'll look at something, it'll try to find holes in this thing in order to justify its ability to just stay where it's at and not make improvements. So this path to enlightenment, it's not, in my opinion, a religion, because it's not rules and commandments. It's not this one person at the top telling everybody else what to do. There's no rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship or any of that kind of stuff. Really what this path to enlightenment is it's a self-help program. It's this inner work that you're doing in your mind to be able to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again, right? You can heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. And the first step on the path to enlightenment is to understand what is hurting you, because the mind thinks with its lack of wisdom that it's the outside world that's hurting you, but it's not the outside world. It's the inner world. And when you train the inner world through this inner development and this self-help program, you can get to the point where you'll never hurt ever again, and the mind will be fully protected. So you don't have to live with the anger and the stress and the frustration. While most beings have just come to think that this is what the human condition is and that they're just subjected to this, you can opt out of it. Just like you get an email and you can opt out of the email, you can unsubscribe to anger, you can unsubscribe to frustration, and you can say, hey, I'm opting out of this. And now you gradually train your mind to be able to get to that point. And now you'll just live such a fulfilling and satisfying life.
Thank you. Maybe just one more question. How should we balance between being generous and sustain ourselves or making our own life better? Because like personally, sometimes I feel like I can definitely, for example, save $1 per meal so that I can help maybe some kids in Africa to enjoy their meal. So it's like, if there are still people poorer than me, I should not have I'm not like legit to kind of live to a higher or improved life of myself. How should I be kind of keep this balance?
Yeah, this is where each person on a case-by-case basis needs to look at their life and see what it is that they're able to help with. And then they're going to need to ebb and flow with that, because that's going to change over the course of your life. So at one time I was in business and I used to share an enormous amount of money with people. Like I used to give this temple in our community. This is when I was living in the USA. I used to share $1,000 a month, and I didn't even go to that temple. I knew the people there, and I would kind of like, go there occasionally to do different things, but I wasn't going there regularly. But I was making all this money, and I would share it with them. I would share it with schools. I would share it with other people, different places. And I knew that this was something that I was able to do, and I was pleased to do it. I didn't have any expectation of anything. But then as my life started changing and I got out of the business world and I didn't have that kind of income anymore, I needed to throttle that back, and I couldn't share that kind of funds anymore. And then when I was able to, I had more time than I had money. So then I started sharing my time, right? So you need to be able to ebb and flow with this, because your life's going to change because of impermanence. So when you get to the middle with any kind of topic, whether it's generosity or anything else, your mind will almost like take a breath of fresh air. It's like, this feels peaceful. This feels joyful. Whereas if you're overextending yourself with generosity, you're going to feel uncomfortable. And also, if you're being selfish, you're going to feel uncomfortable there too. But when you get to the middle, it's like, yeah, my $1 a day or whatever it is for you, right? Everybody's going to be a bit different. And then you'll feel comfortable there. And now you can ebb and flow. And one of the things you'll find with generosity is frequency is more important than the amount. Right? So if you were going to give like $500 a year, once a year, that is not as beneficial and impactful to the mind as giving like $1 a day. Because each day you have to let go, let go, let go. So here in Thailand, as you go around, you'll see like donation boxes, a lot of different places in the malls and in restaurants and stuff like this. If you gave like 5 baht, 10 baht, 20 baht, just like a little by little by little each day, 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, this is better than giving one big donation once a year, because your mind's having to frequently let go. Or say that, now we're not talking about merit, right? Now say like you notice that when your clothes come out of the washing machine or the dryer, they're ripped. And now you notice like you're frustrated because your clothes are ripped. This is because your mind's attached to your clothing and you're holding on to it tightly. And in this situation, you can practice generosity where you give away some of your clothes or you buy clothes for other people. This is going to train your mind to let go. Or say like you have jewelry that you wear and you notice that when you can't find it, your mind is all shaken up by that. And you're like, where's my earrings? Where's my ring? Where's my ring? And you're like all frustrated. Where's my watch? Where's my watch? Now you would like to start sharing some of this stuff. Whether you give it away or you let your friends or family wear it for a period of time, this is going to train your mind to let go, where you're not holding on to it, wanting it to be permanent. So wherever you see your mind holding on to something, whether it's money or clothing or even like your house, sometimes people are uncomfortable having people come over and stay in your house, right? It's like, this is my house. I don't want anybody in here. Like it would be wise to let people come over and stay with you. So you train your mind to let go and not hold on to these things so you can be comfortable in all situations.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello. I actually have a follow-up question according to her question, because I feel like the Buddhism's approach to trauma and hurts is very different from nowadays psychologists. If you go to a therapist, we will try to track why the reason you are hurt, the reason, and also be given a lot of compassion and for a long period of time. But in Buddhism, we tend to just cut off, let go right away, focus on the breath and all this. Would it be lead to some emotion or a problem being not dealt with or treated that is a bit like kind of suppressing side, or would it lead to this problem? That's my question.
Yeah, the reason why we don't do that, what modern psychology does, is because we already know what's causing the trauma. It's the mind clinging and holding on. So we don't have to go explore why this is occurring, because we already know. It's because the mind's holding on, it's craving and clinging. So the idea of like experiencing something and the mind experiencing trauma, and now this is something permanent that you're going to deal with for the rest of your life, we already know that that's not true. This trauma is impermanent. All trauma is that somebody has experienced something in the past, some painful situation, and now their mind is clinging to that experience. And now in the present moment, they're forming feelings based on this thing in the past. So let's just say I walk down the street and somebody in a green jacket beats me up, and now I get all this physical pain. And now every time I walk down the street, every time I see someone with a green jacket, I get scared, right? This is because the mind's clinging and holding on and thinking that everybody in a green jacket is going to beat me up. Well, I don't need to like investigate that and figure out, what's causing it, because we already know it's the craving, it's the clinging that's holding on. And we already know the solution, which is the breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity to train the mind to let go. So in the teachings of the Buddha, you're not suppressing your feelings. You're not suppressing these emotions. What you're doing is you're eliminating the causes and conditions that are producing them. So if you train your mind to let go, then it won't hold on to this experience, thinking that everybody that you encounter with a green jacket is going to hit you and beat you up. So the mind needs to be trained to let go. And now when the mind lets that go and it realizes impermanence, that yes, there's some people that might attack this being, but there's other people who aren't, and you can navigate the world peacefully without being scared and fearful. And that's through training the mind to let go. And we're not suppressing the feelings, we're eliminating the causes and conditions that are producing it, which is the mind holding on and craving permanence. Yes, sir. Oh, you have another one?
Another question is, we know that generosity is different from merit, and but in terms of wholesome result, would the wholesome result be different? Would there be like a bigger result, a bigger wholesome result if I do merit instead of generosity?
The improvement to the condition of your mind is the same in terms of you're training your mind to let go. But in terms of what that generosity produces in the world, it's different, right? Because if you're allowing people to get access to these teachings, that's going to be much more impactful than something over here. But as I was sharing with Galit, that doesn't mean you just do one thing. You can practice generosity directed towards the continuation of the sharing of the teachings of the Buddha, but you can also help an orphanage. You can also help a children's school. You can help an animal shelter. You can help these other things, a homeless shelter, a women's abuse shelter. You can help these other things, but just understand the quality of what that is going to produce isn't as high of a quality as people getting access to these teachings. But in terms of your mind, it's going to be the same. I think Josh has a question right next to you.
So if you act generously with pure intention and with virtuosity, can you generate merit? It's similar. I'm trying to get a little bit of a distinction, because when I think of merit, I think of things like a merit badge, or like the noun merit, which is something that you get.
Yeah. Merit is purely when you're helping people get access to the teachings of the Buddha. That's how we define it in the teachings of the Buddha. It's wholesome Kamma that is based in generosity, but it's that generosity is directed towards others getting access to the teachings of the Buddha. So the way that we're teaching is, say, sweeping and cleaning the bathrooms at the temple to help people get access to the teachings would be better than cleaning the bathrooms at your children's school, for example. It doesn't mean that they're not both needed and that it wouldn't be wise to do both of these things, but it's just that helping people get access to the teachings is the very best gift or the very best sharing that you could ever give, because now they're learning how to eliminate their anger and their frustration. They're becoming more loving and kind in the world. People aren't stealing and having sexual misconduct and lying and taking substances that cause heedlessness and all these harmful things that people are doing in the world. It's knocking down the harm. Sure, over here, people are learning English or learning mathematics, and all those things are needed too. But if they're only doing that and they're not learning how to eliminate their anger and frustration from their mind, then the world isn't becoming a more kind, more gentle, more loving place to be.
So they're sort of hierarchical, or is generosity more about eliminating my cravings, desires, and attachments?
Generosity, whether it's just pure generosity or it's merit, it's about you eliminating your cravings, desires, attachments. But there's the other benefit of merit, that your generosity is helping other people to get access to the teachings.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
I don't know if it's working. So recently I have lost my yoga mat. And for me, it was very important. And for the last few months, it was really like my place where to practice steadiness. And I was trying, like, in the mornings to practice asana, yoga. And so now I don't have it anymore. But I was searching for it in my hostel. And the woman that is working in the hostel, she gave me another one. and it's more comfortable, it's nicer also, it's clean. And she told me it's also new and someone left it there for other people. So I took it and I'm using it. So now I recognize that I'm also attached to this yoga mat, to my former yoga mat. And also that I could spend my time searching for it. Probably someone took it because it's not there anymore. So I could spend my time searching for it in the cameras and like going everywhere in the hostel, or I can just let it go. And I feel that for me it can be a good exercise also to do that, to just let go. But it's really difficult because sometimes during the day I'm like, I'm like thinking about my yoga mat, like where it is or like something like that. Yeah. So I don't know if, yeah.
So you needing to give that yoga mat back to the hostel is going to...
No, they just,
you don't have to? They told you to keep it?
Yeah, they just gave it to me.
So if I were you, what I would recommend is that you do give it back to them, so that you can train your mind to let go. And then I would even suggest you go buy some different yoga mats if you have the access to the resources. If you don't have access to the resources, then no need to do this now, but share by purchasing 3, 4, 5 yoga mats, sharing them with other people, because the mind needs to be trained to let go. Or if you're going to end up keeping that yoga mat, then let other people use it from time to time. That will help you to let go of your attachment to that yoga mat, where it's not just mine, but you're willing to share it with other people.
Yeah. I mean, I was attached to the other one, to the first one, but yeah, I don't know. I would like to practice this kind of generosity and not be so attached to something that is material.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That one that's gone, your mind's gonna have to let that one go.
Yeah.
Because it's
like,
not
this
coming
is
back.
Hard. I don't know why.
The challenge would be the current one that you have. If your mind's getting attached to that, you would like to get ahead of the curve with this and let other people to use it. So when you go to a yoga place, you might decide, if someone doesn't have a yoga mat, is let them use your yoga mat and do yoga with no mat, because that is possible. You don't have to have a yoga mat to do yoga, right? Yeah. So you could let someone else use it and you use no yoga mat at all. And this will train your mind that yoga mats are not permanent, that you're going to need to be comfortable with this impermanent nature of a yoga mat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe one more question. When people around me are not generous or even doing some hustle or hurt people, that kind of things, how should we react? Like personally, previously, I first feel quite upset. Then I feel a bit angry. And now I'm actually choosing between I don't care or I try to understand or I forgive. But sometimes I feel like it kind of consumes my energy to try to understand or forgive. And then right now, mainly I try not to care so much. I'm not sure, like when I felt hurt or angry, how should I react?
Okay, so this is the mind swinging back and forth, okay, because it hasn't seen the middle way on this topic yet. When you're craving and you're desiring and you're longing and yearning, you're going to want and expect people to act a certain way and function a certain way. And now you're carrying around that burden of wanting people to be a certain way. And that's going to weigh on you. And it's going to be very painful when you see people doing things opposite of the way you want them to function, where this world is never going to function according to you. Right? Because your mind has a certain way that you think the world should function, but it doesn't function that way. It functions according to these natural laws. You need to get to the point where you let go of wanting everyone to do things your way and realize that there's this impermanent nature of the world, that there's more than just one right way to do things in the world, and that everybody's going to do things in their own unique way. That's impermanence. But as long as the mind's carrying around this burden, it can be very tiring. It can be very exhausting, because now when people do things your way, you get happy or excited. And if they don't do things your way, then the mind will get angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. And then what the mind's going to do is it's going to tend to swing all the way to this other side where it's like, I don't care. Right? And now the mind's over here and it doesn't feel comfortable there either. Right? So the middle way is to have compassion for all beings. What compassion is where you have concern for their misfortune. So if you know that generosity is wise and you choose to practice generosity, wonderful, that's your choice. But you understand that not everybody's going to practice generosity because not everybody understands that wisdom. That would be permanence. So by coming to the middle where you can have concern for the misfortune of others, this is to understand that other people are lacking wisdom and they're not understanding that generosity is wise, but you don't have to judge them as being good or bad or right or wrong, and just understand that, okay, that's what they're choosing to do and that's up to them, but it doesn't have to affect you in your mind. The only reason why it's affecting you in your mind is because of the craving, because of the longing and expecting and wanting them to be a certain way. And this is common for all unenlightened minds tend to function this way. This is what people will do, is they'll want others to be a certain way. This is why people don't get along with their mom or their dad or their brothers or their sisters or co-workers or friends, because it's only a matter of time before these people do things in a way that you don't want them to do it. So if you get rid of your expectations and your wants of longing, yearning for people to be a certain way, and you can come to the middle and just make wise decisions for yourself without expecting or longing or yearning for them to be a certain way. So you mentioned, like, how do I react in this situation? You're not interested in reacting in any situation, because usually when the mind's reacting, it's reacting based in these pollutions of mind. But what you would like to do is learn how to respond in a certain situation. And in some situations, a response is nothing. You don't need to respond to anything. The goal of this path isn't to go out into the world and teach other people to do things our way. The goal of this path is for you to cultivate the wisdom of training your own mind and now making wise decisions to go forward in life. So if other people are lacking the wisdom of practicing generosity or any other aspect of life, that's just where they are in their life. You were in that same place at some point in your life. So just understand that that's where they are, and don't have a craving for them to be different. They have to learn the wisdom to improve their decision making, and that's something for them to choose to do at their own time and place.
Yeah, I think I also try to try to be compassionate about it. And what I'm doing is I try to spend my time to understand why they behave like this, so that I can be compassionate. And that's time-consuming energy, because otherwise it's hard for me to kind of really say, like, okay, they behave this, it's normal. I need to, like, really understand why it's normal before I can just say it's normal.
Yeah, I would say that that's not true compassion yet, because if you're practicing true compassion, it wouldn't be exhausting to you, because you'd be in the middle and your mind would be at ease. What you're actually practicing is still craving, desire, attachment, wanting them to be a certain way. So if you would like to understand why someone is selfish, it's because of craving, desire, attachment. You already know the answer if you study the Four Noble Truths, which you may not have studied yet. That's the underlying problem that's causing someone to be selfish, is that the mind is having craving, desire, attachment. But we don't need to look at people and judge them as being selfish. But because you understand what the word selfish means, I can use that in description of this situation. But it would be unwise to look at someone else and be like, oh, they are selfish, right? Because that's judgmental. And now that's coming from your own conceit. And now that's harming your own mind. You would like to get to the point where you don't judge other people. You just understand this person is choosing not to share for whatever reason. It could be craving, desire, attachment, but it could also mean that they're just at a place in their life where they need those resources for themselves, right? So you don't need to understand that person and why they're doing that. That's their choice, and it doesn't affect you. But if you have a craving, desire, attachment for them to be a certain way, now you're allowing it to affect you because you want them to be a certain way. It's just like if you want someone to be respectful to you, or you want someone to be polite to you, as long as you're longing, yearning for that, you're going to be discontent when people aren't polite and respectful to you. Because again, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because it's wise to be polite and respectful to people. But when your mind's craving for everybody, meaning permanence, everybody to be polite and respectful to you, That's not the world you live in. You live in an impermanent world where the vast majority of people are polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, but you're going to have people who are sometimes impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. And that's the impermanent nature of the world. But when somebody's being impolite and disrespectful, you just ignore it and you just keep on going in your day, and you don't spend time to even think about this, because this is that person's choice and it's affecting them. But if you want and crave for people to be a certain way, then when they're not that way, you'll be frustrated, you'll be agitated, and then you'll ultimately get exhausted.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You'd like to go again? Mm-hmm.
Yes. I actually have a question, because I'm a teacher. I teach a grade 9 and these teenagers. Most of the time I'm dealing with a lot of disrespectful behavior, and there's gonna be a lot of challenge with me. So I do have a craving for them to be respectful and quiet and be clean and manage themselves. But it's what I need to maintain the class, also to maintain the class from going. So I want to know what's your opinion about it. So when I face this challenging student, when they swear or stuff, I just ignore them, let them do what they want to do, and walk away from them. Should I do this?
Yeah, in that situation, you're in a different role, right? We're just talking about average people that you see. You're in a different role. You're a teacher, and you can teach your students how to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful. And that's one of the benefits that you can bring to them as a teacher. But you need to be very skillful in the way that you do that, because if you're just jumping in and teaching them in unsolicited ways, you can run into a lot of problems. So what I would suggest you do is schedule an appointment with me so we can sit down and talk, and I can give you all kinds of detailed guidance of how to help these students to be able to learn and grow and become wiser and making wiser decisions. You still need to get rid of your craving, desire, attachment for them to do it a certain way, but that doesn't mean you don't make wise decisions to teach them how to do things in a wise way. But you need to get rid of your attachment to craving it and longing, yearning for it, because then you'll be able to do it peacefully and joyfully. Whereas if you want them to do it a certain way, you'll get happy when they do it that way, and you'll be frustrated when they don't. But if you get rid of that and you can just learn how to make wise decisions to guide them, now you can be content and peaceful either way, but at the same time you're guiding them to make improved and wiser decisions. But you need to be really skillful in how you do that. So if you'd like to talk privately, you can come talk with me and I'll sit down with you and help you. Khalid?
I think I'm a little fixated, I guess, on the word merit. Because like, I think it was Josh as well, saying the merit badge, then what are, I understand specifically that this pertains, the word merit goes with the teachings of the Buddha and accessibility for others. But what would the word merit then be with the merit badge? Why is the word different for different things?
Because of impermanence. Here in the Buddha's teachings, we define words, some cases, in a unique way. So like craving, desire, attachment, we describe that in a way that's different than maybe some other places in the world. And what you need to be able to do is take on this meaning that we're explaining it with, so that you understand that when we're talking about these words, this is what we mean by these words. And craving, desire, attachment is an example. Wants and expectations is an example. Merit is an example. Then you understand what we're referring to. But someone else could use this word in a different way than what we're using it in Buddhist teachings.
Okay, so most likely if it was like the merit badge, it would be kids performing generosity and then they getting the merit badge or something like that.
The merit badge is actually given out for all kinds of things.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's like camping and hiking. It has nothing to do with generosity. There's all kinds of different, it's basically skills, and merit badge is like an acknowledgement of your new skill, and that's what a merit badge is. It's almost like a certificate saying like, hey, you've learned this skill. And that's what they use it for in Boy Scouts
Right.
or Girl Scouts. So they define the word merit differently for their community. And just like us, we define it differently for our community. Where imagine if you go online and you look in a dictionary, they define it a certain way in a dictionary too. That's probably different than both of these places.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So merit is wholesome karma that is generated by practicing generosity towards the continued sharing of the teachings of the Buddha. And now that's merit. Right. Okay, yep.
Would you consider the act of deciding of becoming a parent, like, to decide to become a parent, like to procreate, an act of generosity or of craving? Because at the end, there is always some kind of attachment if you have a kid, and it's just like, but also not while you're a parent, already like before, when you say, oh, okay, I would like to be a parent, and let's see if it is possible, if I can, and everything.
Yeah, to choose to become a parent, there's typically a craving, desire, attachment there. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Because one of the ways to extinguish a craving, desire, attachment in some cases is to actually fulfill it. So if someone got to the end of their life and they really wanted to have a child and they never had one, they still have a craving in their mind. Mind is still unenlightened. One of the ways to get rid of a craving to have children is to have them. So there is a craving there, right? Because there's the craving for sexual contact. There's going to be that involved. And if someone's choosing to have sex in order to have a child, there's a certain craving involved. It's possible to have a child without a craving, like maybe somebody was sexually assaulted and now they've been impregnated and now they're going to have a baby and they really didn't want the baby. They didn't have a craving for it, but they're going to potentially have it anyway. That's an example of someone who could have a baby without a craving. So this is where even having a baby with craving, that's the vast majority of the world. But because of impermanence, it is possible to have a baby without craving. But if you're choosing to do it, and this is something you want and expect, then it's a craving, desire, attachment. But again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's just a matter of understanding that that's what it is, and you're doing this in order to have this child, and this is something you'd like to do, and it can be a very wonderful aspect of someone's life if they choose to do that.
But also I feel like there is also some side that I also feel like that in the world we have so many kids maybe without parents or not many resources, and they are extinguishing with time. So I feel like maybe it's not really an act of generosity, and it can cause harm in the large scale. The world,
it's not about trying to get other people to do anything particular. Each person has to make their own decision. So the Buddha isn't saying like having children is all good, having children is all bad. He's not telling you what's good or bad or right or wrong. It's your life, it's your decisions, it's your results. So if people would choose to have a child, that's their choice. It's not up to us to tell other people what they should or shouldn't be doing. It's up for each individual to choose for their own life. And since you asked me about, children, I'm just sharing with you that, there's a craving there to be able to choose to have a child, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it, that it could actually result in the elimination of that craving, which is very beneficial for them.
You can have a child also with generosity.
It's not generosity because you want something. You want this child, right? That's a craving that your mind's having. Generosity, pure generosity, is giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. Now, once you have a child, you can practice generosity with that child. So like I practice generosity with my son, where I give him things and I don't want anything back in return from him. So you can practice generosity with your child, but the act of having a child isn't generosity.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. More? Yep.
How do you know when it's wise to satisfy the craving desire by doing it? I mean, in case you're not hurting anybody, it's okay to fulfill the craving desire, or how do you manage that?
Yeah. So if there's a certain craving in your mind that you can't cut off and let go of, there are some that you can fulfill. Like, say, for example, I have this craving to go to the Philippines. I've always wanted to go to the Philippines. I could cut that off and train my mind to let it go over time, or I could just go to the Philippines, check it out, and I'll eliminate that craving. But you need to be able to do this with an understanding that whatever craving you're looking to fulfill, it's not going to cause harm to other people, and that your ultimate goal is to extinguish this craving. Because if I went to the Philippines, then I went to Tokyo, and then I went to somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else, and I didn't realize that what I was doing here was extinguishing craving, I would be stuck in this continuous cycle of craving. So if there's something that your mind can't let go of and you need to fulfill it, and you know it's going to not cause harm to others, and you are actively working to eliminate it, that it's not just going to continue and continue and continue to the next one and the next one and the next one, this could be something that would be wise to fulfill.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any questions online here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online here. So what I'm going to do then is just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you so much for being interested in learning the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys would like to learn more, you're more than welcome to come back and learn. I teach here on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays at 9 a.m. and I'm live streaming as well. So wherever you are in the world, you could attend live. And then at 9 p.m., I teach from home and I live stream that as well. There's no live audience there, but it's live online. And then wherever you can attend live, there's the recordings that you could digest through YouTube, Facebook, or our podcast. And all that classes and courses and retreats and all of our resources are available on our website. And you can see the access to these over there on the bulletin board. And you're welcome to come talk to me, and I can be able to help you get plugged in to the resources that you need to be able to make your way to this peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment. The next class that I'm going to teach is going to be on Wednesday, where I'm going to do meditation with students and then open up to any and all questions that they might have. And then the following week, we have a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course that is starting, that is going to be on the 3rd of February, and that's Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a foundational course where you're learning all the foundational teachings to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And you can attend that here, you can attend online, because we live stream all of those things. So thank you all for your interest to learn. Thank you for your questions, and perhaps we'll see you guys another time. Take care and be well. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.